what's happening around the world
and what's happening here at home.
Good evening, this is Primetime News and I'm Sandra Ferdinando.
And I'm Umitra Bekun. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for tonight.
The headlines on Newsfirst.
IMF approves immediate release of a tranche of $695 million under the EFF provided to Sri Lanka. Stability of financial companies will increase following central bank's move to lower LTVs on gold-backed lending and vehicles, says Fitch Ratings. Who is the leader of the opposition alliance?
අවශ්‍යතාවය මත සන්දානගත වෙනවා මිසක් තමන්ගේ ආරක්ෂාව මත සන්දානගත වෙන්න ඕනේ නැහැ.
Memorandum of Understanding signed between the Maharaja Media Network and the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. Businessman killed in a shooting in Kalutara. 3 teams deployed to arrest the gunman. Cannot be satisfied with the Iran peace agreement, says Donald Trump. A warning issued by Trump to Oman as well. Islamic devotees across the world mark Hajj today.
Your top story for tonight, the extraordinary Gazette notification designating 15 categories of services as essential services has been extended. These services are mandated to function without interruption to assist in the country's recovery and daily operations. The designated essential services include electricity and fuel, health services and ambulances, water, food, irrigation, public transport and roads, district secretariats, divisional secretariats and field officers, as well as the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, state banks and insurance services, telecommunications, telephone and media, lowland reclamation, agriculture and agricultural insurance. Meanwhile, the Executive Board of the International Monetary Fund has approved an additional $695 million under the Extended Fund Facility Agreement provided to Sri Lanka.
The approval was granted after the Executive Board completed the combined 5th and 6th reviews of the country's Extended Fund Facility.
Sri Lanka has secured an immediate financial boost of approximately $695 million after the Executive Board of the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, completed the combined 5th and 6th reviews of the country's Extended Fund Facility, or EFF. The IMF Executive Board's decision unlocks 508 million SDRs, or special drawing rights, bringing total disbursements under the 48-month bailout program to around $2.4 billion since its approval in March 2023. The EFF arrangement, initially valued at around $3 billion, is aimed at restoring macroeconomic stability, strengthening public finances, rebuilding external buffers, and advancing structural reforms to support long-term growth. The latest review highlights Sri Lanka's generally strong performance under the program. According to the IMF, authorities successfully implemented key prior actions, including the restoration of cost recovery pricing mechanisms for fuel and electricity, long considered critical to addressing fiscal imbalances in the state-owned energy sector. Quantitative targets set for end December 2025 were fully met, while most structural reform benchmarks were achieved, albeit with some delays. However, the IMF noted that certain continuous performance criteria were not observed, specifically commitments related to avoiding new external payment arrears and refraining from imposing or intensifying import restrictions. Despite these lapses, the overall reform trajectory has remained intact, with authorities continuing to demonstrate commitment to stabilization efforts. The IMF cautioned that Sri Lanka's economic outlook faces growing downside risks driven by external and climate-related shocks. The ongoing war in the Middle East has significantly clouded prospects, primarily through rising global oil prices and potential disruptions to tourism, a key foreign exchange earner. Compounding these pressures is the aftermath of Cyclone Ditwa, which has necessitated increased government spending for recovery and reconstruction. Reflecting these challenges, economic growth for 2026 is projected to slow down to around 3%. The government has already introduced a temporary relief package to cushion the most vulnerable populations, alongside additional allocations to address cyclone-related damages. Fiscal policy is expected to remain accommodative in the near term to support recovery efforts. However, authorities have reaffirmed their commitment to fiscal discipline beyond 2026, targeting a primary surplus of 2.3% of GDP from 2027 while adhering to expenditure ceilings. Debt restructuring efforts, a cornerstone of Sri Lanka's recovery strategy following its 2022 sovereign default, are reportedly nearing completion. Yet, the IMF warned that debt sustainability risks remain elevated. Looking ahead, the IMF emphasized the importance of structural reforms aimed at improving the investment climate, including upgrading public infrastructure and addressing governance vulnerabilities.
Sri Lanka's recent gains in stabilizing prices and the rupee are the result of cautious monetary policy, not uncontrolled money printing.
This comment was made by the International Monetary Fund's Mission Chief for Sri Lanka, Evan Papachocho, in response to a question posed by Newsfirst's Zulfikar Farzan during a virtual press conference.
My question is, there is growing concern about Sri Lanka's exchange rate. And how does the IMF assess this situation? Because the IMF has requested the central bank to prioritize price stability and allow for greater exchange rate flexibility. So how much more flexible does the rupee need to be, and over what time frame? Thank you.
First of all, on Zulfik's question, so let me just say a little bit. So we view the Central Bank of Sri Lanka's monetary and exchange rate policies as based on maintaining stability and controlling inflation. Inflation, as you know very well, has fallen dramatically from 60 to 70% at the peak during the 2022 crisis to low single digits now, and temporarily a little higher in the last month because of the Middle East conflict. Let me just be clear here. This achievement is, in our view, reflects a disciplined approach, not uncontrolled money printing. The central bank has refrained from monetary financing of the budget deficit under the IMF supported program. Policy interest rates remain aligned with a 5% inflation target of the CBSL. The exchange rate has been allowed to show some greater flexibility and is acting as a shock absorber. And there is generally a process of rebuilding foreign reserves. Reserve accumulation is continuing. It has slowed down, obviously, now because of the Middle East conflict and the need to support excessive volatility or smooth excessive volatility. But generally speaking, the direction is the one that we have discussed and agreed with the authorities. The monetary stance is broadly appropriate. The inflation is projected to remain around the 5% target, both this year and over the medium term. And now with prices stabilized and foreign reserves continuing to grow and improving as we have it in the projection, we do not see any evidence of destabilizing monetary expansion. So this is the general point. In terms of the rupee flexibility, obviously, as I mentioned, the rupee has remained a good adjustment mechanism. There's a need for prudent and rules-based monetary policy and a flexible exchange rate. And this is very important because the currency is meant to be the first line of defense in terms of external shocks. This is a real economic shock, meaning one that takes place in the real economy. And as such, there is a need for an adjustment through the real sector, through the currency and the real sector. And so this is an appropriate response.
Fitch Ratings says that Sri Lanka's tighter macroprudential restrictions on vehicle and gold-backed lending will benefit lenders' risk profiles, particularly those of finance companies. According to Fitch Ratings, these new limits will directly impact the financial stability of finance companies, as vehicle financing accounts for about 65% of sector loans and gold-backed lending represents around 20% of their loan portfolio. According to the new regulations recently imposed by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, the maximum credit limit, or LTV cap, for vehicle purchases was reduced by 10%. Accordingly, the LTV cap for commercial vehicles is now set at 60% of their value. When providing credit facilities for personal vehicles, including motor cars, SUVs, vans and three-wheelers, the maximum LTV cap has been reduced to 40% for unregistered or recently registered personal vehicles from the previous level of 50%. Under the new amendment, the maximum LTV limit on gold-backed lending has been reduced to 70% of its collateral value. According to the Fitch Ratings report, while these tighter caps may weigh on lending volumes and earnings growth for financial institutions in the short term, they believe it remains a positive measure for long-term stability.
The People's Joint Opposition says that their group is operating against the current government under the leadership of former Minister Professor G.L. Pires. However, the Samaki Jana Balawegaya, which represents the largest number of opposition members of parliament, does not represent this People's Joint Opposition.
අපි ප්‍රධාන විපක්ෂයේ ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොජ්ජන පෙරමුණටත් සමගි ජන බලවේගයටත් අපි ආරාධනා කරලා තියෙනවා මේක සම්බන්ධ වෙන කියලා. ඒ නිසා අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා ඉදිරියේදී පොජ්ජන පෙරමුණත් සමගි ජන බලවේගයත් එකතු වෙලා එක මිටට මේ චෞර ආණ්ඩුව පරාජය කිරීමේ මෙහෙයුමට දායක වෙයි කියලා.
ඒ විපක්ෂය පාර්ලිමේන්තුවටනේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ ප්‍රධාන විපක්ෂය. එළිය ප්‍රධාන විපක්ෂය තමයි ඒකාබද්ධ විපක්ෂය. ඒ කියන්නේ ඔබතුමාලා ඊට වැඩි ප්‍රබලයි එළියේ. එතකොට ඒකට මේකට නායකයෙක් හදාගන්න. ඒ ජීල් මහත්තයාගේ නායකත්වයෙන් අපි ඔක්කොමලා වැඩ කරනවා නායකයෝ ටික.
ජීඑල් පීරිස් මැතිතුමා මහාචාර්ය ජීඑල් පීරිස් මැතිතුමා තමයි කැඳවුම් කරු.
Dayasiri Jayasekara, who was elected to Parliament from the Samaki Jana Balawegaya, which does not represent the People's Joint Opposition, convened a press conference today. He emphasised that a proper leader must be found to form a strong alternative. However, it is noteworthy that Dayasiri Jayasekara convened this press conference in Colombo today under the name of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party.
No, I do not have such personal goals. First, we need to create a common program. That common program must become a strong alternative for the people. The next point is that we need to find the necessary leaders for it. What has happened today is that the country has turned into a leaderless nation. Therefore, finding the necessary team and the necessary leader for it will happen in 2029.
ඒකට අවශ්‍ය කරන ටීම් එක සහ ඒකට අවශ්‍ය කරන නායකයෙක් සොයා ගැනීම දෙයාසු ඉස්ලාමයේදී සිද්ධ වෙයි.
While SJB MP Dayasiri Jayasekara claims that there are no suitable leaders to present as an alternative, the opposition leader is focusing on other public concerns. Speaking at an event held today, the opposition leader stated that the taxes imposed on women's sanitary products should be removed.
5 types of taxes have been imposed on sanitary products. If other countries can remove the taxes imposed on such sanitary products, why can't our country do the same? That is a question that must be raised.
Here are the views expressed by former Minister Mervyn Selva during a press conference today regarding the People's Joint Opposition and the conduct of the opposition leader.
What I'm saying is this. If you stand for the country, if the joint opposition or any other group is coming together, the leader of every political party should go and sit there. That is what humility is. If arrogance runs through their veins, all they want is to grab positions, protect their families and just move forward.
Is the Sri Lanka Podujana Perumana ready to form an alliance? Here are the views expressed on the matter by the national organizer of the Podujana Perumana, Member of Parliament Nama Rajapaksa.
ඒක මේ ඉහළ නායකයෝ කොළඹට වෙලා AC කාමරවල වාඩිලා තීන්දුව අරගෙන අපි දැන් එකතු වෙලා කියලා ගමන යන්න බෑ. අවශ්‍යතාවය මත සන්දානගත වෙනවා මිසක් තමන්ගේ ආරක්ෂාව මත සන්දානගත වෙන්න ඕනේ නෑ.
ඒ කියන්නේ ඉදිරියේදී ජනාධිපති අපේක්ෂකයා ජනාධිපති වෙන්නේ සජිත් නෙමෙයි නාමල් කියන එකද ඔය කියන්නේ?
ඉතින් මටයි සජිත්ටයි දෙපැත්තක කියන්න පුළුවන් මම තමයි පොර කියලා. හැබැයි ජනතාවක තීන්දුව කරන්නේ.
This is the response given to Nama Rajapaksa by Madhura Vithanage, who was once elected to Parliament representing the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna but has now left that party to represent the Sarvajana Balaya.
The people of this country have realized it today. Rather than politicians or a political movement that just talks about the same old stories and plays the same old broken records without a concrete program, people recognize the Sarvajana Balaya as the leadership that brings fresh ideas that can actually be turned into reality on the ground. They see it as a leadership that has a clear program aligned with the entrepreneurial concepts emerging.
What are these opposition groups saying? What are they doing? Here are the views expressed by the Deputy Minister of Urban Development, Teranga Gunasekara, regarding the matter.
I think in the past, when a dollar issue came up, Ranil and his group started getting suits tailored. Sajid also started getting suits tailored. After that, people like Dilith go around starting up little shows that look like various puppet exhibitions. They think that when the dollar fluctuates, the same dance they performed 4 years ago is about to resurface. Then, when fuel queues appear, they think, is it the dance that they performed that is about to be remembered once again? Because of that, we saw after the cyclone struck, they started seeing various dreams, trying to imagine a little fairy tale world where they take power and the people are just waiting for them willingly. But what actually happened is, by the time they give their measurements and step out, let alone getting the suit tailored, the situation has already returned to normal. What is the reason? They cannot understand this now, because this is a pro-people government. Secondly, 4 years ago, all those groups, Ranil, the Rajapaksas, Sajid, all of them got together and bankrupted this country. Now both inside parliament and outside in front of the media, they say, we are the experts, take advice from us. If we take advice from these people, I think we won't even be able to manage what we already have.
The ultimate stage, built to ignite the talents of our nation's children. The open-air stage at Galnava Kattaragama Primary School is now officially open. To dance, to sing, to play music. Children, this stage belongs to you. Gamadha, for the people, by the people.
In a significant step for Sri Lanka's media industry and its engagement with the wider Indo-Pacific region,
the Australian Broadcasting Corporation signed a Memorandum of Understanding with Sri Lanka's Maharaja Media Network, part of the Capital Maharaja Group.
The Memorandum of Understanding signed between Sri Lanka's Maharaja Media Network and ABC Australia marks a historic agreement between the two organizations, aimed at promoting opportunities in tourism, investment, creative industries, and strengthening people-to-people ties between Sri Lanka and Australia. The MOU was signed by Group Director of the Capital Maharaja Group and Maharaja Media Network, Siobhan Daniel, on behalf of the Maharaja Media Network, while ABC's international head, Claire M. Gorman, signed on behalf of ABC. Group Director of Capital Maharaja Group, Suranga Jayalath, and ABC's lead in international broadcast and digital services, Nesrin Bouzian, were also present at the event. ABC International Head Claire M. Gorman shared her views on the agreement. Excerpt.
This partnership builds on an already strong relationship and reflects our shared commitment to supporting public interest media across the Indo-Pacific region and strengthening cultural and media ties between Australia and Sri Lanka.
End of excerpt. Group Director of the Capital Maharaja Group and the Maharaja Media Network, Siobhan Daniel, also shared his views on the MOU. Excerpt.
Signing this MOU marks a meaningful next step in a trusted partnership, and we look forward to deepening the shared values between Australia and Sri Lanka.
End of excerpt. As the first initiative under the new MOU, ABC's Culture by Design will be developed as a joint production between the two organizations. Welcoming the agreement, Australian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Matthew Duckworth, shared his views.
Today it gives me great pleasure to congratulate the Maharaja Media Network and Australian Broadcasting Corporation on their new MOU that is going to mean more stories being shared between Sri Lanka and Australia. We've got a great legacy of this. Australia and Sri Lanka have worked together in media, in broadcasting for a very long time. It goes right back to the 1950s when the Australian broadcasting expert Clifford Dodd came out to Sri Lanka and worked to establish the new commercial broadcasting network of Ceylon Radio. That was a phenomenal success, and it's helped to build up a great tradition of partnership and cooperation in media over the years. Now, this cooperation is building on some co-production and content sharing that has been done over the last couple of years.
The MOU opens space for Sri Lankan stories, talent and perspectives to travel further, while giving local media professionals access to international experience, standards and collaborations.
Day 2 of the Sri Lanka German Business Forum 2026 convened today in Colombo, focusing on trade policy, infrastructure investment and bilateral economic cooperation between Sri Lanka and Germany.
The session was attended by Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, the German ambassador to Sri Lanka, the ambassador of the European Union to Sri Lanka and the Maldives, along with several other dignitaries.
In recent years, Sri Lanka-Germany relations have been strengthened through sustained high-level engagements and exchanges. The partnership between Sri Lanka and Germany, however, extends beyond trade and investment. Germany has remained a trusted partner in development cooperation, renewable energy, and technical and vocational education and training. I think German brands are trusted and recognized here, as it has been world over, but I think Sri Lanka has a particular affinity with many German brands. The German government sustained support for vocational education over more than 6 decades, has contributed to the development of generations of skilled young people, both in Sri Lanka and internationally. I'm also really pleased to be able to announce that we are also exploring a similar, another version that will specialize in renewable energy, particularly in solar and wind power with German assistance in the south of Sri Lanka, and we are very excited about that as well.
Sri Lanka and Germany have more than 70 years of diplomatic relations, which have always been open for business. Both business communities and entrepreneurs remain resilient, facing every challenge and using opportunities. Today, Germany needs a modern Sri Lanka, where the same values are shared, be it free trade, freedom of navigation, or a rules-based global order. These values are an essential part of doing business where predictability is important. In a changing global world order, where traditional political relations are being reviewed, there is an opportunity for both countries, especially as Sri Lanka is geographically, strategically located, which becomes increasingly vital in East-West trade. In this regard as well, Sri Lanka and Germany are a good fit, and these opportunities should be further explored by both countries.
The forum also featured panel discussions on Sri Lanka's maritime and export sectors alongside business networking opportunities. Group Finance Director of the Capital Maharaja Group, Lalit Fernando, also attended a panel discussion on exploring emerging markets by examining key challenges and uncovering actionable opportunities.
One thing I would like to share with you all is that Sri Lanka as a nation, as a location, as a hub, is the ideal place for any investment for that matter. But have we really gone out there and then marketed it rightly? Because what I see is we have the talent here, we have the resources here, but have we done enough to go out there and then market it properly? And the brand that we have created can be enhanced further. If we get the right brand image and the right branding of Sri Lanka as a country, as a nation, then potential is immense. Yes, we need the investments coming into Sri Lanka, we need the exports. For all that to happen, we need to win markets. So to do that, I think it's essential that we all the corporate sector, private, public, everybody together should work on that.
The Sri Lanka German Business Forum inaugurated last evening in Colombo with the participation of the Deputy Minister of Industry and Entrepreneurship Development, Chaturanga Abesinghe.
The expectation here is that our startups which are presented here and the list of startups that have signed up for AI competition get real partners and get networking opportunities in Europe. So I think that is the best outcome we are looking for. I think the exposure for our startups is one of the biggest lacking pieces. I think this kind of forums give them that. I think the tech startups, the engineering startups will have a great opportunity to partner large organizations, and also we see a great connectivity between Germany and Sri Lanka on the food sector, which is the value-added agri sector. And lastly, it's about the wellness tourism. I think those three things are very prominent, especially when it comes to German investors.
An innovation pitch session also took place where selected startups presented their ideas to the German business community, with the winning pitch securing an opportunity to compete at a global level. The Maharaja Media Network and Newsfirst are exclusive media partners of the event. Up next is Crime Watch.
A motorcyclist was shot by an occupant of a car that arrived in the Vettumakad area in Kalutara this morning. The 44-year-old victim died after being admitted to the Nagoda hospital. He was a resident of the Vettumakad area in Kalutara. The police media spokesperson stated that the individual was involved in a cattle slaughter business for meat, and 3 police teams have commenced investigations into the homicide.
Whether this is a crime linked to organized crime or an act committed to settle a personal vendetta, all these avenues are currently being investigated by 3 teams under the supervision of the Senior Superintendent of Police for Kalutara South.
Meanwhile, the car involved in the shooting was found abandoned near the Thebumana post office. Meanwhile, in the Yagudumulla area in Minuwangoda, police opened fire at a car that defied orders to stop.
Police had to open fire due to suspicions raised when a car defied orders to stop at 3 separate checkpoints. We were later able to arrest the 2 suspects within the Sidur police jurisdiction. Investigations have been launched through 2 teams under the supervision of the Minuwangoda OIC. Dr. Hans Vijayasuriya, Senior Advisor to the President on Digital Economy, says that the government's primary objective is to increase Sri Lanka's digital economic contribution from its current 3% to 12% by the year 2030.
Senior Advisor to the President on Digital Economy, Dr. Hans Vijayasuriya, says it is the aim of the nation to raise the contribution of the digital economy from its current level of 3% to 12% by 2030.
So the target is to move from 3% to 12% by 2030. If you factor in economic growth, that translates to going from around $3 billion today to $15 billion, 5 times in this period. So what is the digital economy? I think the narrowest definition is to do with what we are very used to, payments, transacting on digital devices, communication services, broadband services. This is the narrowest definition.
Dr. Vijayasuriya made these remarks at an awareness program held yesterday at the Information and Communication Technology Agency, or ICTA, in Colombo. Speaking at the event, he said digital transformation must drive overall economic growth, not just individual IT projects, and stressed the need for wider adoption across all sectors.
The official launch of the 8th Steering Committee meeting of the Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub was held in Colombo today, bringing together representatives of Commonwealth member states, climate finance experts, development partners and international stakeholders.
Sri Lanka hosted the event at a time when climate change continues to pose significant challenges to vulnerable developing countries with growing impacts on livelihoods, infrastructure and sustainable development. The meeting focused on strengthening access to climate finance and improving the capacity of countries to develop and implement climate-related projects. Discussions also highlighted the importance of making climate finance more accessible, predictable and responsive to the needs of vulnerable nations. Joining the event, Acting Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Employment and Tourism, Arun Hemachandra said, climate change is a present and growing reality for vulnerable countries, stressing the need for more accessible and effective climate finance to bridge the gap between ambition and implementation. As the CCFAH marks a decade of supporting member states, emphasis was placed on enhancing international cooperation, including Commonwealth partnerships, to bridge existing gaps between climate commitments and implementation. Sri Lanka reaffirmed its commitment to advancing climate resilience and sustainable development, while acknowledging the support of international partners in strengthening access to climate finance.
Muslims around the world have begun celebrating Eid al-Adha, the festival of sacrifice, which falls on the 10th day of Dhul Hijjah, the 12th and final month of the Muslim lunar calendar.
One of the biggest holidays in the Muslim calendar, it coincides with the last day of the annual Hajj pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia.
Once a year, large number of Muslim pilgrims converge in Saudi Arabia, uniting in religious rituals and acts of worship as they perform the Hajj. While fulfilling a religious obligation, they immerse themselves in what can be a spiritual experience of a lifetime for them and a chance to seek God's forgiveness and the erasure of past sins. The Hajj is the annual Islamic pilgrimage to Mecca in Saudi Arabia and involves a series of religious rituals. It's required once in a lifetime of every Muslim who can afford it and is physically able to make it. Some Muslims make the journey more than once. It is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, in addition to the profession of faith, prayer, almsgiving and fasting. The Hajj occurs once a year during the lunar month of Dhul Hijjah, the 12th and final month of the Islamic calendar year. For pilgrims performing the Hajj fulfills a religious obligation and is also a deeply spiritual experience. It's seen as a chance to seek God's forgiveness, to grow closer to God and to walk in the footsteps of prophets. Communally, the Hajj unites Muslims of diverse races, ethnicities, languages and economic classes from around the world. It leaves many feeling unity, connection and humility. Pilgrims also show up with their own personal appeals, wishes and experiences. Many pilgrims bring with them prayer requests from family and friends that they would like to be said on their behalf. Together, Islamic devotees in Sri Lanka engaged in religious rituals at various locations. Issuing a Hajj message, President Anurukumara Dissanayake has requested everyone to embrace the guidance of the Hajj celebration, which symbolizes peace, brotherhood and sacrifice into their lives. The President also stated that this occasion, where all Islamic devotees unite to perform religious rituals, sends a great message of equality and brotherhood to the world. The President pointed out that even amidst the difficulties faced by the world due to the war situation in the Middle East, Islamic devotees going on the Mecca pilgrimage are coming together to celebrate the ultimate sacrifice and dedication made by the Prophet. Further mentioned that the government's goal is to build a compassionate society filled with peace and harmony where selflessness prevails over selfishness.
Weather first.
It's time for the weather forecast, and Onelka Amaratunga has the details.
Yes, thank you, Sandro. Now, the Department of Meteorology states that showers or thunder showers will occur from time to time in the western, Sabragamu and northwestern districts, as well as in the Gaul, Mathara, Kandy and Nuwara districts. According to the weather forecast issued this afternoon, the current rainy weather conditions in the southwestern parts of the island are expected to persist further. The report also notes that showers or thunder showers may occur in several places in the Uva province as well and the Ampara and Batticaloa districts during the afternoon. Fairly strong winds gusting between 30 to 40 kilometers per hour from time to time can be expected on the western slopes of the central hills in the northern, north central and northwestern provinces, in the Trincomalee district as well. The Department of Meteorology advises that the public to take necessary precautions to minimize the damages caused by temporary strong winds and lightning that may occur during the thunder showers.
Iran targeted a U.S. airbase in Kuwait today after the United States struck what Washington described as an Iranian drone operation near the Strait of Hormuz, and President Donald Trump rejected a report compromise deal with Tehran.
We now cross over to Theruni Kanaratne for more details on the ongoing conflict.
Thank you very much, Sandru and Omitra. Developments from the Middle East indicate further escalation in regional tensions, with the U.S. Central Command confirming that Iran fired a ballistic missile toward Kuwait overnight, which was intercepted. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps earlier stated that it had launched an attack targeting an American airbase, claiming it was in response to recent U.S. strikes. Meanwhile, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar is scheduled to travel to Washington, D.C. on Friday, where he will meet U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The Foreign Ministry said that the two sides will review bilateral relations and exchange views on regional and global developments of mutual interest.
Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has said it targeted an American airbase in the region after fresh U.S. strikes on southern Iran overnight. The IRGC did not say where the base was, but Kuwait, which hosts a U.S. base, said it had intercepted hostile missile and drone threats. The U.S. military said Iran had launched a ballistic missile towards Kuwait that was successfully intercepted by Kuwaiti forces without specifying whether it was aimed at its military base. The Iranian missile launch came after the U.S. shot down Iranian drones over the Strait of Hormuz and struck a military site in Bandar Abbas, a strategic port city in southern Iran. The renewed hostilities threaten a fragile ceasefire between Washington and Tehran. United States President Donald Trump has threatened to use military force against Oman if it collaborates with Iran to assert control over the Strait of Hormuz. At a cabinet meeting, a reporter asked Trump to weigh in on the idea of Oman and Iran overseeing trade on the strategic waterway, which handles more than 20% of the world's global oil traffic.
No, the strait's going to be open to everybody.
And who will control it?
It's international waters. Nobody's going to control it. We're going to watch over it. We'll watch over it, but nobody's going to control it. That's part of the negotiation that we have. They would like to control it. Nobody's going to control it. It's international waters, and Oman will behave just like everybody else, so we'll have to blow them up. They understand that. They'll be fine.
However, Trump said he won't be rushed into a deal, warning that Iran's efforts to outlast him won't work because he doesn't, quote-unquote, care about the midterms. Meanwhile, based on a report from Iran's semi-official Tasnim news agency, 4 ships, one of them an American tanker, turned off their radars and attempted to pass the Strait of Hormuz. IRGC forces asked them to identify themselves, but they did not respond or cooperate. As a result, the IRGC fired some warning shots. In response, the IRGC targeted a U.S. base in the region that was the origin of the U.S. attack on Bandar Abbas. The U.S. has now put sanctions on Iran's newly founded Persian Gulf Strait Authority. The authority has been tasked with coordinating a new maritime regime in and around the Strait of Hormuz. It is responsible for designating the lanes that vessels can pass through. Markets in Asia have largely fallen following renewed hostilities between the US and Iran, with benchmark indices in South Korea, Hong Kong and Australia opening lower. Oil prices are also rising amid new uncertainty around the US-Iran ceasefire, with Brent crude futures rebounding to more than $95 a barrel. US oil futures have also jumped to more than $91 a barrel. Traders are monitoring reports of clashes amid negotiation between the US and Iran to end the war, with the Strait of Hormuz remaining blocked.
Today marks a victorious day for Sri Lankan athletics. The 2026 Asian Under-20 Athletics Championships officially commenced today in Hong Kong, bringing together top young athletes from across the continent. Now, Sri Lanka made an impressive start to the competition, with Tharushi Abhisheka delivering a standout performance to win the gold medal in the women's 1,500-meter event, marking a significant achievement for the country on the international stage.
7 finals and several preliminary round matches of the 22nd Asian Under-20 Athletics Championships were held today. Tharushi Abhisheka clinched the gold medal in the 1,500 meters event with a timing of 4 minutes 31.41 seconds. The silver medal was won by Mariam Ahmadi of Iran. Meanwhile, South Korea's Song Da-won secured the bronze medal. In the meantime, Sri Lanka's Omel Silva and Sadev Rajkaruna qualified for the finals of the men's 400 meters event. In the first semi-final held today, Omel Silva secured second place with a timing of 46.82 seconds. In the second semi-final, Sadev Rajkaruna finished third, clocking the time of 46.46 seconds. The final of this event is scheduled to be held tomorrow. And with that, we wrap up news for tonight.
Thank you for watching. Good night.